Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 214 of ReelBlend, a podcast that blames all of our failures on that time that we briefly recast Jake with Alden Ehrenreich. Big mistake. We learned in hindsight we can't do that. So, my name is Sean O'Connell.
It would be a good call.
No, we need you back. I'm the managing editor here at ReelBlend and a co-host of the ReelBlend podcast, which this week is going to be discussing a lot of new Star Wars news that dropped. We're going to react to the new She-Hulk trailer, and we're going to review Alex Garland's new film Men that's hitting theaters this weekend. And by we, I mean, I'll start with Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago, because you're in a familiar backdrop, and I want to save Kevin for a minute. So, hi, Jake. How are you?
For people that don't know, the people that run the junkets, it's a company called JPI, and they've been pulling this trick on us the past few times we slide in to do a junket, because you wait in this sort of big virtual hospitality suite. And they've saved a couple of our backgrounds and make it their own. And it's always a trip whenever you log on and see someone else with these three little pictures behind them. It's
if I'm being honest, my feelings are a little hurt that they haven't,
because they've never done
your. No, they haven't done my backdrop. They did.
Yeah, the one they did for mine has like this incredible motion effect on it.
Yeah, yours looks awesome.
Yeah,
mine has a freaking plant that pops up.
Yeah, they basically have
yours goes to space.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, it does. That's right. Is it like a little door that opens?
Yeah, it's like the bookshelf from Interstellar.
Yeah.
I have freaking Soylent Green.
Mine doesn't look like anything. But Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. has a new backdrop. Hi, Kev. How are you?
I do. Hey, good to see you guys this morning or afternoon, wherever time frame we're in right now.
What poster is that behind over your shoulder?
That's Ready Player One.
I would say that looks like you're having some Ready Player fun.
That's hot.
Yeah, that's right. But in terms of the backgrounds that Jake's talking about, there is the one they did for mine was they took my Blu-ray shelves and it's like Star Wars essentially. They can move the movies back and forth. It's really kind of a cool animation of my bookshelf. So
it's a reminder of how long we've been doing this, and also I can now never get rid of these three paintings because Spielberg told me that he likes them. So I can never get rid of these. Yeah. Sean, what did Spielberg say about your backdrop?
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm glad you asked that. I didn't talk to him because I didn't get him. So he didn't comment on them. Gabe Kovac is waiting till we get Alfonso Cuarón back on the show. He's keeping that Roma poster up there until we get Alfonso. Hi, Gabe. How are you doing?
How's everybody doing? I'm good.
I'd be a little heartbroken if he came back on the show and just said nothing.
Oh, why? Oh,
I know. I'd be heartbroken. Yeah, if he didn't. Yeah, just came back and just didn't acknowledge it. Yeah,
we're talking a lot about the visuals.
Your background looks great. Yeah, this is becoming a visual medium. I feel like
it is. I know, and I feel a little bit bad for the people who only listen to the audio part of it. So if you want to head over to YouTube, you can watch the show at youtube.com/ReelBlend Podcast. And while you're there, do us a favor.
We're very good looking.
Hit like, hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications every time a new episode of the show drops, which is on Friday mornings at around 7:30 Eastern. The notification squad hits the comments down below, and then people start to weigh in. We had a lot of commentary on the Batman tier list from last week. A lot of people taking Jake's side. Ton of comments.
One thing I do want to add really quickly, and look, I'll go as far as saying like maybe we scale this back a bit. Oh. Did you guys know that Dark Knight Rises is like number 60 on the IMDb top 250 list?
60?
Yeah. It's
like the 60th best movie of all time.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
That's even I, as someone who like was clawing and scraping and yelling and fighting for a B, even I go, okay. Yeah, maybe we scale that back a little bit.
But this is the list that had, at all due respect to Shawshank, which is a terrific movie, had Shawshank at number 1 above The Godfather and Godfather Part 2 for years. Years upon
years. Still is.
It still is?
Still is.
Oh, Shawshank's still number 1. Finally rectified that.
I mean, it doesn't bother. Shawshank at number 1 really doesn't bother me. Is that, do you lose sleep over that?
I can tell you 100 movies that are better than Shawshank Redemption.
It's not that I lose sleep over it. It's just it negates the list. Like
you negate the list.
You know, gosh, you know how many times you're going to pull that joke on me when we do Hook?
People like it.
There are 10 movies that came out that year that are better than Shawshank. Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Pulp Fiction's in the top 10.
For more riveting off the topic conversations like this, you want to subscribe to our ReelBlend Premium.
That's a great way to describe it.
Where you get, first off, if you're a premium subscriber, you get an ad-free version of the show. You also get a newsletter that I'm going to actually, this is a newsletter week, so you'll be getting one from me on Friday. And then a new episode that drops every Monday. And the next premium episode, just to give you guys a little tease, we are doing a retro review where we pick a movie that we go back to and revisit to see if we still feel the same way about it, or one or two of us will watch something that we haven't seen for the very first time. Refreshed review. Thank you, Gabe. And
Sean, what's the hook for this week?
Good question, Jake. Good question. We're going from one frying pan into the fire and talking about Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, Hook. We're going to talk about Hook. So make sure you are subscribed to the.
But the hook of this refresh review is that, Sean, this is the first time you're seeing this, right? This is the first time you saw Hook?
It was the first time that I watched Hook. Yes.
It's the first time I've seen it in probably 20 years.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd seen it since I was. I haven't seen it since I was 7.
Yeah. The question being, I guess, like, does how strong of a drug is nostalgia?
Yeah, exactly. So you'll find out.
Tune in Monday to find out.
Yeah, you'll find out by being a premium subscriber. So we'll see you all then.
I'm excited for this episode. Like, I would want to listen to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I hope. Anyway, we always aim for fun. We get there 50% of the time. Talking points. We have the She-Hulk trailer. She-Hulk dropped. This is a new Marvel television show that's coming in August. It's the second upcoming Marvel television show. Miss Marvel is going to be here in June. Thor: Love and Thunder will drop in July, and then Miss Marvel is here in August. And I think then we're done until Black Panther in November. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I'm going to go first with this one because I guess I'm the Marvel fanboy of the show. And I'm going to say that this is the very first bit of footage from a Marvel project that made me audibly go, yikes, that doesn't look very good. And I think some of it's the tone. And I found a lot of people responding to the tone and liking the approach to it. But a lot of it was the VFX. And believe me, I understand that the VFX artists are quite often racing to the very last minute and delivering these shows as finished as physically possible. So, and all the stuff with Tatiana Maslany playing Jennifer Walters playing She-Hulk is going to look better, I hope, by the time that the show eventually arrives.
Tatiana Maslany, just a heads up.
Tatiana Maslany. I'm sorry. Thank you, Kevin. Mm-hmm. But, there were a lot of jokes on social media about her looking like Princess Fiona from Shrek. And I'd actually argue that Princess Fiona looked better 20 something years ago when the Shrek movies came out. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look finished. Someone also joked, stealing a lot of people's Twitter jokes, that the She-Hulk video game looks pretty interesting. So I don't know. And listen, I'll go into all the Marvel shows with an open mind. I'm super geeked about most things Marvel, but this is the first one where I was just like, I almost feel a little bit the way Jake's always saying of just like, I don't know if I necessarily need to watch that one. So this is probably, that means the one that you guys loved. And I'm on the fence about it.
I thought the trailer was solid. I mean, taking the CGI aspect away, which did not look great. And I still do not understand why a studio would release a trailer or any footage when the CGI isn't finished. Now I get, like in Sonic's case, that obviously helped the film when they released it, but I think they were done with it, I would imagine. And they were like, oh, the reaction is bad, so we need to fix it. That's kind of what happened on Sonic, at least from what I understand. So in this case, I don't understand why they would release it if it's not their finished product. And I get that CG is being finished and movies and shows are being finished up until the last minute. But when you drop a trailer into the world, I mean, like, you're basically like asking for comments and reaction. And I feel like that's a gigantic aspect of that trailer is some of that CG does not look great at all. And I think, that being said, Tatiana Maslany is one of the best actors working today. I mean, I'm very happy Orphan Black is a great showcase of her range, and I think that I think the tone of this sounds cool. I liked her and Ruffalo together. I liked the flying and the landing together. That was cool. The jumping and the landing, whatever you want to say. But in terms of, I mean, there were some jokes in there that worked. It felt very Marvel. It felt very MCU. It felt very. I was more excited, and again, like talking about upcoming projects. Obviously, Moon Knight was a big one. I'm really looking forward to Miss Marvel, just because of the filmmakers who are involved. And I think that looks great. But yeah, the She-Hulk trailer, I don't know too much about the character outside of like there being a She-Hulk. But I think the Attorney at Law thing is a bit of a longer title that I don't think they needed. Just call it She-Hulk.
Sure.
I don't know why they needed Attorney at Law. That could have been like a subtext in the show. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it made me chuckle. Some of the lines about her talking about other superheroes and kind of what's that line she makes about adult orphans. She talks about like
she's surprised being a superhero. These are the different people that are superheroes, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought she kind of that line was like, oh, yeah, actually, it's an interesting perspective on superheroes, particularly. So,
you know what I'm officially sick of, though? I'm sorry, Jakey, before I cut you off. I'm kind of sick of Smart Hulk. I a little bit want Hulk to go back to being Hulk.
How about that?
I like Smart Hulk.
I thought it was fine. And now I'm ready for him to go back to being Hulk again. So, Jakey, where are you at?
There is a joke in an episode of Arrested Development that's one of my all-time favorite jokes in television. And it's Jason Bateman opens a fridge, finds a paper bag left by his brother Job, who is a magician. And on the outside of the bag, it says, "Don't open, dead dove inside." And he opens it, looks inside, and then looks up and goes, "Well, I don't really know what I expected." And which is kind of how I feel about the She-Hulk trailer, where it's like I watched it and went, I don't really know what I expected. I mean, I guess that's about what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
It has very much a almost borderline like Lou Ferrigno Hulk like kind of TV show vibe, like getting more into kind of a fun, more jovial, which is interesting because I feel like the tone of Phase 4 is very much still the repercussions of the snap and the repercussions of the introduction of the multiverse, which has only yielded bad things for most people. So to have this sort of like happy-go-lucky, oh shucks, we're superheroes, isn't that kind of, an inconvenient sort of thing right now feels interesting. But I mean, like, I've made my opinion about the current state of Marvel known, which is just right now, everything that's being thrown at me is just sort of like, okay, I guess like that's, and
I thought you were really looking forward to Thor though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Thor, but like it's looking forward to Thor with like a higher octave in my voice. Like, yeah, it's gonna be great. That's gonna be fun. Like, but
I thought that was anticipated for you.
Like no, I mean, I'm excited about it, but also like, I mean, we're like looking back on like Jake pre-Infinity War. It's a completely different level. Now these are just movies that come out. It doesn't feel special for me anymore.
I mean, I thought No Way Home was special. Really
but I also would argue that was special, not necessarily because of the Marvel machine, but because of like nostalgia brought in from the outside.
I don't know. I mean, I would argue No Way Home. And again, I'm not as amped about this new phase either. But No Way Home, I thought was like one of the greatest MCU films ever made. I mean, but anyways.
Another trailer that dropped for a film coming out, a romantic comedy by Billy Eichner called Bros. And the pitch inside of the pitch is essentially Billy Eichner playing a guy who says he got hired by a studio to write a gay romantic comedy, and whether or not he's the right person to write a gay romantic comedy or not. Coming from some really, recognizable and somewhat contemporary comedic minds. The guys behind Neighbors, is it just Judd Apatow? Is Apatow
Nicholas Stoller? Nicholas Stoller directed it. Apatow produced it, and Stoller is he's like kind of been in that universal world of comedy, these R-rated comedies that have been coming out. This is from like the Trainwreck group, and it actually has a very Trainwreck vibe to it in the sense of like it feels like Billy's playing a version of himself, and then you have kind of like Amy Schumer, who was playing kind of a version of herself essentially in Trainwreck, which I loved Trainwreck, and I still think it yielded like one of my favorite. Like LeBron is so great in that movie, and I think because Apatow directed Trainwreck, and I mean I just loved that movie. I even loved Funny People. This kind of reminds me, it's all in that same, almost like a trilogy of like Funny People, and then
does that mean this is going to be 30 minutes too long?
I don't know. See, I actually don't think Apatow
doesn't direct this.
But I actually love Apatow. I mean, but Stoller directed this movie. The trailer is hilarious. Like I was, yeah.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say similar to King of Staten Island too. It's like they pick a comedian and then essentially structure a story around them. So Kev, go on the trailer.
I just thought it was really funny and really well done, and I like that he's calling out this concept of being asked by a studio to do this film. And there's a bit in that trailer that made me laugh so hard where he was like, this is not going to be a movie where the camera goes away when you have the two guys who are about to kiss, and then the camera comes out, and I'm not going to say what it is because you should see the trailer for yourself because it's so funny.
It's very much a Red Band trailer.
Yeah.
It's very
okay, but even by Red Band standards, that joke pretty much surprised me.
It's a great joke.
It's really funny.
It's a phenomenal joke, but I had absolutely no idea it was going to be that shot. And
that surprised me.
I thought like the way it was being set up, it's kind of brilliant. Like the way they set that shot up, it was like, oh, I thought they were just going to cut to the two characters kissing. And and for people who haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, but that might have been a reveal I would have maybe wanted.
That was my only thing. That was my only thing is I was like, oh, I bet this would have been great. I'm gonna be bummed that this isn't surprising in the movie, but maybe it's edited a little differently.
But it sold me. That joke was like I was watching the trailer and I was already hooked because I think Billy is incredibly talented, and Jake and I we've all discussed this before.
Billy on the street, man.
His on the street segments are unbelievable. The energetic aspect of it. It's just he did one with Paul Rudd that made me laugh so
for
hard.
$1.
If you get a chance, look up the Paul Rudd, Billy Eichner Man on the Street. But going back to this movie, I love the trailer. I was so amped by it. But again, I'm also coming from a perspective that somebody who loved Trainwreck and loved King of Staten Island and really loved Funny People. And again, just not that they're the same filmmakers, but same producer and team and things like that. I love this real world, but kind of fictionalized element. And then at the same time, what the movie is doing is what it's going to do, what it's going to mean to people. There's a whole element of that trailer where he talks about there's differences between straight and gay love and the differences in kind of what those relationships are like. And I'm really fascinated, not only from the comedic perspective, but just the perspective of like having a gigantic film with a major studio telling this story. And Eichner, I think, is the perfect person and voice to do this, and I it's like it's as if like we've been waiting for the right person to tell this story, and I think Billy really is that person at this time. And the R-rated aspect of it, I'm so happy it's like R-rated and raunchy. The trailer is great. So I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised. I knew nothing about it. I knew there was a movie coming out. I knew it was called Bros. I knew Eichner was involved. I knew Apatow was involved, but knew nothing about it outside of that. And I was like, that looks great. Looks great.
He mentioned at CinemaCon, Billy Eichner was on stage to present this trailer, so we got to see it back then. And I believe he said it. I need someone else to confirm, but I'm pretty certain he said every actor playing a character in the movie is an openly gay, an open member of LGBTQ plus community.
Every actor in the film?
From what he said, yeah.
Or every character who's gay in the movie?
I think, no. I think every character every actor, someone should look that up and see what his quote is from that. But I'm fairly certain he said every actor featured in the movie is an openly gay actor. So,
that's awesome.
And I know from the angle we wrote on it in CinemaBlend today in our voices section, we singled out the fact that there's a lot of openly gay talent that people recognize. A lot of faces I didn't necessarily recognize, but I'm glad that, if that's what they're committing to, that's fantastic. Jakey, what'd you think of the trailer?
Yeah, I think it looks fantastic.
Before we move on, I wanted to draw.
Thank you. Close that loop.
Yeah. Yes, it is the first major studio film to feature an all LGBTQ principal cast playing heterosexual roles as well. So,
interesting.
Oh, wow, okay. That's awesome. That comes out when? August or September? Is that this year?
It's August. Yeah, it's definitely this year.
Looks great.
I'm sorry,
all right, Jake,
what'd you think?
Yeah, no, everything about it looks. I mean, you guys are absolutely spot on. It just seems really like a great representation of a fresh voice that we really haven't gotten in this way or to this degree before, which is always a fantastic thing. And it's one thing to get a new voice or a new perspective, but to have that voice and perspective come from someone who is so unbelievably immensely talented, like Billy Eichner. Like we've been saying, if you've never seen Billy on the street, you don't even have to watch on just YouTube some of the things he's done with Chris Evans or Paul Rudd, or just running, literally one of his bits, as silly as it sounds, is running Paul Rudd around New York and asking strangers would you have for $1? Would you have sex with Paul Rudd? And the reaction, not just the reactions he gets out of people, but then his reactions to people's reactions.
I love when he cuts people off.
Genius.
He's like, he's like, whatever, I'm done with you, and then he just walks.
Because like if someone like wants a hug with Paul Rudd, he'd be like, no, he's not here for a hug, he's here for sex. And then they like, it's just genius stuff. So if that is a microcosm example of how hard he can make me laugh in 90 seconds, I look forward to seeing how hard he can make me laugh with 2 hours.
What I also love about it is, like, at the end of the day, it's an important film for just in getting voices out into major films. But I also think the key here is that it actually is funny. It looks great. Like, it's not just like, we're going to release a movie because we're going to represent more voices in cinema. It actually looks like a phenomenal script and like a phenomenal story. So like, I'm all in. I like when a movie can check off 2 boxes. It can be both entertaining, dramatic, but also at the same time carry a weight to it that's important for people to view it. And I think when you hit that level of like getting both of those at the same time, you've made a great film, because then you're kind of in the zeitgeist. People are talking about your film, but they're also saying, hey, Bros is really good, but it also did this for me. It opened my mind up about this. I didn't know this or that. So that trailer was like kind of one of the most pleasant surprises I've had in a while in terms of a trailer.
I think Neighbors is underrated. Nicholas Stoller directed the first Neighbors. The first Neighbors is really funny. The second one's not
first
that good.
Neighbors has some gags in it that are like special effects.
Franco's impression of De Niro and
that's a great
Meet
one.
the Parents was fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know why I remember that.
What's the bit? Was it the first or second one where like Rogan gets like launched in the air from some kind of air? Which one? I don't remember now. Anyways, but I'm going off on a tangent here. But
Johnny Knoxville in Jackass. He goes to a furniture shop and he's dressed like an old man.
No, there's something in Neighbors where like I remember he gets like blown up or something. Anyways, we'll continue on.
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a break because we have a lot of Star Wars news to get to on the other side. So let's go into an ad read, and then we'll talk to you guys in a minute. And we are back. So Vanity Fair had a Star Wars cover story, which is interesting from the perspective of we had a conversation a couple episodes back that like the future of Star Wars was kind of unknown. Like they'd thrown a lot of projects out there. We weren't necessarily sure which of them were in full development. There's obviously been a lot of television shows that are coming from the Star Wars world, and we were all kind of looking forward to Star Wars Celebration as being the time and place where we thought a lot of this stuff would get confirmed. But lo and behold, Anthony Bresnigan is an extremely gifted reporter with a lot of great contacts, and especially at Lucasfilm, and got a huge sit down with just about everybody you'd want to talk to in the Star Wars universe, specifically Kathy Kennedy and Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and the cast of Obi-Wan and the cast of Andor and basically everyone. And so came out with a slew of news, specifically from what's coming in Star Wars films, but then also some of the stuff that we didn't expect for television. And I want to start with the movies that are coming, because the information from the film side of it, this was really heavily into the idea that like in terms of Star Wars, a lot of stuff is going to be on TV. It's going to be on Disney Plus and the streaming service, whether it be Obi-Wan coming out in a couple of weeks, and then Andor coming out
next week
toward the end of this year. Obi-Wan's next week? Is it that quick?
Yeah, May 27th.
And then Ahsoka with Rosario Dawson coming out in 2023. In terms of the films, they confirmed that the next feature film, for now, Star Wars is always prone to change necessarily, but for right now, it's Taika Waititi's film, which they had no details on. But in the process of announcing that, they talked about Kathleen Kennedy talked about Patty Jenkins's Rogue Squadron movie, which is still happening, but according to them is really going to be a follow-up to Taika's movie. And so since we don't even really have details or a title or a date for Taika's movie, like who knows what that means for Rogue Squadron. Are you guys, Jake, how do you feel about the fact that Taika is going to be the next movie up and that the details were kind of scarce?
I mean, that's your latter point is kind of what made me walk away from that Vanity Fair article, just sort of going like, I don't feel like if this article was meant to give us a better idea of the future of Star Wars and the direction we were going to, I don't feel any better than I did the day before the article came out. It still feels very loose and we'll see and we'll get around to it and we think this is what's going to happen. The one sort of solid point that I seem to take away is exactly what you said. Hell, it's the headline of the article, which is that the future of Star Wars is television, which for the most part has been really solid. I've loved both seasons of Mando. Didn't particularly love Boba Fett, but really excited about Obi-Wan. I think Andor and Ahsoka had the potential to be really strong. I just, I needed a clearer, if that was meant to be their like, look at everything that we have. It didn't quite give me quite the assurance. It wasn't quite Kevin Feige saying, hey, we're going out to a cabin in the middle of nowhere and planning out the next 10 years of Marvel.
Correct. But one thing that she did say, which was when George was making these movies, he essentially put out one every 3 years. And I liked the fact that she acknowledged that they were on a pretty manic pace. Where they were trying to do almost one a year and maybe match the Marvel model. And they stopped, they literally stopped and were like, let's really rethink what we're doing.
I mean, there was a period in which we got two Star Wars films in 6 months. We got Last Jedi and then 6 months later 5 months later got Solo.
I'm at such a weird point, like with Star Wars and Marvel, where it just feels, and again, this is just, we all know that that movies are a business, and we this is not like news, but at a point now with like the She-Hulk and trailer, and then all the Star Wars news and all the Marvel films coming out, and Moon Knight and Obi-Wan and and Ahsoka. I mean, I just keep thinking about like I can't step back and go, this just seems like a big business machine, and which it is. But I think my point being is that I feel like it's too much. I really do. And like when Gabe was rattling off earlier what the article was saying about Taika and all these Rian Johnson's trilogy and John Watts doing this, which we're going to get into in this discussion. Sorry, I just jumped ahead a second, but I just looked at it all and went, I mean, it's not that I'm complaining. I'm sure that I'll love this stuff when I see it, and we'll talk about it on the show. It just feels like there's just so much.
I mean, it's sort of like, when you were a kid and like you would beg your mom to take you to McDonald's to get a Happy Meal. And like whenever she finally caved, because my mom always used to say, we got McDonald's at home.
Right.
And which meant like we had food at home,
Right,
but when she would finally cave, it was a big deal. Now, like, what if every single day she was like, you want to go to McDonald's? At a certain point,
every
you go,
day.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like, it just doesn't feel special anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still excited. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm probably, if they don't give us screeners, which as of now, it's not looking like they're going to for Obi-Wan, I fully plan on waking up at 3 a.m. Friday morning to watch Obi-Wan before work.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say about that is the Obi-Wan show interests me primarily because I kind of want a Hayden Christensen comeback. I want that actor to have here's why. Andrew Garfield's moments in No Way Home, in my opinion, gave him the ability to finally do Peter Parker and Spider-Man the way hold on, listen to what I'm saying. Peter Parker and Spider-Man the way it should have been done. I think that outside, because I don't think George Lucas is a great director. I really don't. And I think that Christensen's performance in those films isn't great. I'm hoping that Obi-Wan gives the ability for Hayden to kind of have a resurgence. Like maybe we give him his proper Vader story and performance, but I could be wrong. That's just where I'm at.
There are a lot of actors who were able to do just fine with what Lucas gave them, and I'm thinking of Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor. Like, at the end of the day, maybe look, I like Hayden. I think he seems like a good guy, but eventually, don't we just have to admit that maybe he's just not that great of an actor?
But Natalie Portman isn't good in Star Wars movies, and she's one of the best actors out there.
So one of the things they are going to do is scale back a couple of the projects that they had announced. Specifically, Rian Johnson's trilogy, which is
it ain't happening. It's not happening. You're right, it's
still happening, but delayed. I don't think it's happening at all.
I don't think it's happening.
I don't think it's happening, but the report was that it's still going to happen, but they're delaying it because of his agreements with Netflix and for Knives Out.
Right.
The official statement is it's happening, but it's on the back burner.
Right. Sure. And to Gabe's point, that is the story. I mean, basically, he's deep in Knives Out production with Netflix. Which, by the way, this is a little side note. I read a story today that Netflix is thinking or considering possibly releasing Knives Out 2 in theaters for 45 days exclusively before the Netflix release.
I think they absolutely should.
They're
looking for ways to make money. They can't
Yes.
make. There's no more people to sign up for Netflix, and if they decide like, hey, what if we were in theaters for a little while,
and it's still a Netflix
I'd
release? The only issue with that problem is that Netflix movies don't play at AMC's and Regals.
Right.
So I don't know.
that could change though.
It could change, and maybe that will change. But going back
HBO,
to
Warner Brothers movies plays at those theaters, and 45 or whatever days later they show up on HBO Max. So I think that we're on a tangent, but like that the status quo there could definitely change if they make a firm commitment.
But what does that tell? Because and listen, I'm very much with you guys.
Let's talk Star Wars. Though,
yes,
if we could.
One quick point though, but just. I mean, Netflix subscribers seem to already be pissed off and annoyed. Like they're basically being blamed on, Netflix stock going down. Yeah. They're being told you can't share your passwords anymore. So to now be told, oh, we've got all these great movies, but if you want to see them right now, you have to pay for it. Otherwise, you have to wait. I feel like that's not what Netflix subscribers are going to want to hear right now. I know you're cool with that, but we're talking people out there who just want to pay for Netflix and get Netflix stuff. They're going to look at that and go, what the shit? I already give you $20. It's already the highest, most expensive streaming service out there. Sure.
We're a little bit further down the road than I think we need to be for this discussion. So we can come back to that if it happens. But
it was a completely legitimate connection.
No,
Ryan Johnson.
No, it's fine. There's a lot of ways that could go. You make
Here's
a good
why
point, Jake,
Last Jedi sucks.
But also they could message that in a completely different way that I think makes sense.
I do have one Ryan Johnson comment real fast about Star Wars, not Knives Out. Back to Ryan Johnson and the story we're telling, which is what topic we're on. Ryan Johnson's finishing Knives Out 2, and that we don't know that what's going to happen with his trilogy, even though they're saying it's still confirmed, right? That's the news. I would argue that his trilogy still happens because it's one of the most divisive films, or the most divisive film probably in the 8 films, or what is it, 9 films. 9. So in my opinion, half of the audience who loves Last Jedi is a big chunk of people, and I think will follow Ryan into whatever he does next. And think about the discourse, right? So the discourse alone is free publicity. So like they could be leaning into, oh, Ryan's our guy who's going to take us outside of the norm of what Star Wars is. And there's a big enough audience who liked Last Jedi that I think could fill our production and our money needs. And then the online discourse, there's your promotion. There's all your junket stuff right there. Just do the discourse.
Let's not call it a trilogy. Let's give him another film.
I thought he had a trilogy.
Yeah, I know, but let's not put the cart before the horse. Is what I'm saying.
But in the same interview, Kennedy says we're not thinking in trilogies anymore.
For sure.
It's kind of like.
Well, that's what I told Gabe. But there are a lot of statements that Kathleen Kennedy made that I sort of went like whenever she says, we've really got to rethink whether or not new actors can play younger versions of original trilogy characters. But in the same note, it's like Obi-Wan starts streaming on May 27th, featuring a new actor playing a younger version of an OG character.
But he's kind of like.
But what?
Ewan's kind of like part of the fabric now,
Well, you know what? Alden could have been part. You know what? If reviews dictated whether or not they went from episode 1 to episode 2, we wouldn't have gotten episode 2. Like Alden could have been a part of the fabric.
I think that statement was one to kind of be like, we're not going to follow that thread anymore, and just be like, and also we're not going to recast Luke. Like I think it was just like
Alden we're not going to recast and Donald Glover were not the problems.
No, 100%. Yeah, no.
I didn't get enough explanation as to where their names came from.
Oh, let me tell you. He actually went to register.
Jake, remember, that's canon. That is canon.
So is Luke throwing his lightsaber over the cliff.
All right. So Kevin Feige's movie apparently is no longer happening. And this is the least surprising. But okay, hold on. I take
That's the one that I would be most interested in seeing is a Kevin 100%. Feige Star Wars movie.
Because Kevin Feige, people might not realize this. Maybe people listening to this show
just because I'm curious.
He's not directing it.
Kevin Feige loves Star Wars more than he loves Marvel stuff. Like he legitimately is the biggest Star Wars nerd. Dude, he is a rabid
You think he's a bigger
Star Wars
fan than a Marvel fan?
Didn't he say it?
I feel like I heard him say that.
I think he said that when they announced his.
That's
involvement.
I can't
believe
imagine
me,
that.
Now he loves Marvel, right? But he grew up in that sweet spot of Star Wars being everything.
All right. Well, if he said it, he said it. You know,
That's like Sean being like, "Look, I know I work on ReelBlend, but I love that podcast where he makes him eat chicken wings."
Oh, I do like that. I'm super into that now. The kids
shout
got
out
into
to
it.
Hot Ones.
Videos. Yeah, shout out to
Hot
Hot
Ones
Ones.
is really great.
Sean's really great at his interviews.
So, thanks, Kev. I appreciate that. So the Feige thing isn't happening because I honestly believe that he's just super overwhelmed with everything that we're talking about, like all the Marvel projects that we've been bringing up. But the thing is, he hired, or it was announced that Michael Waldron, who wrote Loki and who has recently wrote Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, was tapped to write the screenplay for whatever idea Kevin Feige was backing. And as of that article, Kathleen Kennedy made it sound like she wasn't even aware of what his pitch was. So I don't know. We'll see what's going on at Lucasfilm.
Was Kathleen Kennedy sitting on a Game of Thrones throne during the interview?
Not this time. As far as I know, there were no photos. But I'll ask her next time we get a chance.
Actually, I do have a question because, and this is not just to bring that up, but for what I'm referring to, for people who listen to the show, I was in Chicago for Star Wars Celebration with Jake and everybody, and I was at an AT&T store going to this Game of Thrones throne, and right behind me was Kathleen Kennedy also taking photos on the throne. This is why I bring that up. She said she was there because I think at that point the guys from Game of Thrones, DB Weiss, were going to do a Star Wars film, and is that not happening anymore?
Oh, they scrapped that a while back.
They scrapped that. Okay. I just couldn't remember.
Which makes the final season all the more frustrating because they rushed through the final season to hurry up and get to Star Wars, which they ended up scrapping.
You know what's such a bummer though, and what's a bummer about like that particular aspect you're saying, and I'll keep this brief, is like, at the end of the day, when someone says to me, should I watch Game of Thrones? I say,
you gotta say yes.
But it comes with an asterisk though. Cause I thought the last season was so disappointing, but except for I didn't mind the finale. Jake and I watched it together.
But most people will never watch it like that. Most people will never watch it with 18 months in between seasons. Most people will finish a season finale and go straight into it the next season premiere. In which case it's probably better when you just fly through it and watch it.
But you think if you told someone to spend 8 or whatever seasons it was and how many hours of television that is to sit down and watch a show, and they're like Jake, I want to know if this is worth my time.
Yes, I'd still say Game of Thrones is absolutely worth it.
I would have an asterisk. I would say it's good, it's really great, and then the final season was disappointing. It's like Dexter to people.
But there are at least 5 episodes of Game of Thrones that could be argued one of the best hours of television.
Yes.
So, I agree with you. Like, there's greatness. Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to miss those, I would say.
Right. But you tell someone to spend all that time and then go, just a heads up, the ending's not that great.
Last bit of news from the Star Wars universe is that John Watts, who recently walked away from the Fantastic Four, has been tapped for a Star Wars series. So he's going to television. And this one sounds pretty interesting. It's going to be set after Return of the Jedi, and it's going to be in the same time period as The Mandalorian, but they're casting young kids, or it sounds like they're going after like teenagers and young kids because they're looking for a coming of age type Amblin style adventure series. And this is one of those things where
Stand by
who
me.
doesn't say
with the body's Jar Jar?
What other words do you need to already love this project? A Star Wars Amblin style Star Wars story.
But like, and now if they say like starring Tom Hanks and a dog, I'm in. But okay, let me. And I don't mean to be like a Debbie Downer. I genuinely want to ask you guys this.
Yeah.
Just because of like Star Wars' history of like, hey, we're doing this with this filmmaker and it's going to be great. And then like 6 months later being like, never mind, or it's on hold.
Sure.
As of right, every time they throw a name out in a project, there's a part of me that just goes, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Like, it's just like they literally filmed like this Patty Jenkins video, this really badass video, like, because it was about to happen. And then where the hell is it? Like, and it's just like, you know what? Start delivering on some of the promises. And hell, I can't even trust that when a director calls action for the first time that they're going to call cut for the last time, because you don't let your film so start. Tell me I'm wrong. So you know what? Like,
you're right that happened once. Yes, you're correct.
And it can happen again.
Didn't it happen like 3 times on The Wizard of Oz?
Marvel.
Weren't there like 4 directors?
Star Wars.
No, I'm just thinking of like it's happened. Yeah.
Well, but even in Star Wars, Josh Trank, he didn't say, start filming.
He was
Too.
supposed to do both. It's just
if I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, I think it's a great point, Jake, and I think you're right. Like, I don't think they've earned the trust yet.
Yes.
But the benefit of the doubt that I would give is the reason that we're getting a giant Vanity Fair article that has all this information and it's happening now instead of in a week at Star Wars Celebration
Obi-Wan
is because this is them doing that. Like, this is them going, oh, okay, we've put our ducks in a row. The Kevin Feige's not doing his thing. This is getting delayed. We planned on this going here. Like, they're like, we've had that retreat in the woods.
Yeah,
and this is what we finally have.
But Vanity Fair has a long history of doing these big bombastic
I'm not
Star
giving
Wars
Vanity
pieces.
Fair the credit here. I'm just saying, I mean, they had to decide that they were going to do it this way.
Sure.
I'm saying I think that maybe this is them trying to say, like, okay, we're figuring it out. You're right to, like, I agree with you, but if I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, I would say that this sort of big statement with all of this involved is their way of, like,
but I
trying to signal that they're riding the ship as far as setting a course.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just sort of feel like on the other side of this article that was supposed to make me feel better about the direction of Star Wars, I don't. Because
to me, they've very quietly set themselves up with the series. Like, they followed up on the Mandalorian success and they've really doubled down on that. And they have these other series that they're coming out with that I think that we're all excited about and I think look good. And the Mandalorian was a great example. And I think this might be them saying, okay, we went through that phase and we know how much we want TV to be involved in this. And so now we're finally setting some goals for the film that makes sense. For the film world that makes sense.
But also, like, I feel like we live in a world where Star Wars has to match these impossible expectations. I mean, we don't live in a world where, I mean, we had episode 7 and it came out and it was this massive seismic moment in pop culture. But in the same way that there's a difference between Avengers Infinity War and the first Ant-Man movie, we have to acknowledge that there's going to be a difference in Star Wars movies. And I don't understand how, like, Solo comes out, makes over $200 million domestically, and somehow we're scoffing at it like it made $18 at the box office. Like, why can't we have a world where, like, there are some big Star Wars movies that make $1 billion and there are some Star Wars movies that are going to make $400-500 million? Like, I don't understand, like, and like, why can't we just have this varied just expectation, and why every Star Wars movie has to be the biggest film of all time, and if it's not, it's a massive failure, and that's the lesson we should learn from it and never do that thing again?
Because they built the brand up to be the second biggest brand on the planet right now. Like, it's not, maybe it eventually can get to the point where it is delivering the indie version of Star Wars.
Yeah,
but
Kevin Feige didn't look at Ant-Man and go, well, it only made 180 domestic, so no more Ant-Man movies ever. Like, he did, like, everyone looked at that and went, that is exactly what a movie like that should have done. Yeah, he should have. But like, but everyone looked at Ant-Man and went, okay, we can't judge that against an Iron Man or a Thor or a Captain America. Like, it did just fine. And why can't a Star Wars movie do just fine? Like, why does a Star Wars movie make $400 million and we have to learn all these terrible lessons from it, which are not the lessons you should have learned from it for I don't know. I'm getting all frustrated.
I think Marvel and superhero films have, like, this inherent expectation that team up movies are the big ones and the individual characters are the small. Like, I think it's just a way that naturally has happened. Or maybe Feige's a genius and orchestrated, but that's the way our minds work of, like, oh, it's not an Avengers movie, and so we give it. I think to Sean's point, like, they came out swinging big and they were like, our Star Wars movies we're going to come out with one every year and they're going to be the biggest thing ever because it's Star Wars.
If they released Hammerhead, I wouldn't expect them to make $500 million.
Well, but I think today's Star Wars
Greedo the movie.
We wouldn't get Solo a Star Wars story.
I'd watch the Greedo the movie.
I think we'd get Solo a Star Wars story, the TV show.
Well, that's what I feel like, rather than get a sequel, because like I've always said, the story they set up at the end of Solo is the Solo story I wanted to see. And I wish we would get a series about that.
Dude, what if they did a Greedo movie and it was like 2 films, like Memento style? Well, no, like what they do is they do half the film with Greedo shooting first. What happens after that? And then, well, I guess he dies, so I guess the second half would end really quickly.
Or what if it's like every person at the bar in Mos Eisley is like tells a version of that story,
and then
like
Lucas
the werewolf looking dude,
and then George Lucas steps in at the end and goes, "Yeah, Greedo shot first," and then that's the end of the movie.
I would watch this. Be more interesting than most of the things that are coming. Before we get out of the the massive IP franchise talk, we want Jake to review Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, having caught up with it a little bit after the rest of us got a chance to see it. And then we want to place it in our tier list. And I do want to point out that right after, because Kevin and I got to see the movie together in San Diego, and right after it ended, we had an instant conversation about where we would put it. And I want to say that we were in sync. Now, Kevin might have changed his mind since then, but we'll get to that point in a minute. Jake, you got to see the new Sam Raimi.
I did.
The latest Marvel. Your thoughts on the new Doctor Strange adventure?
I didn't like it.
No.
No, I gotta be
All right,
honest,
moving
man.
on.
It's committed one of the most unforgivable sins that a superhero movie can commit for me, which is being almost unbearably boring. Like that middle act, Jesus, I was clawing my eyes out. Like I was just so unbearably bored. I thought this script was an absolute mess, a travesty, just a collection of us saying, oh crap, we had to move this movie around because of Spider-Man and the repercussions of Spider-Man and had to readjust some things. I really feel I just get this vibe that Cumberbatch is just over playing this character. I just feel like he's kind of done with it. And look, I really think one of the worst things to happen to Marvel is them building these studios in Georgia that they keep going back to. Like the sets just look like the same the street sets just look like the same recycled street sets over and over and over again. And there were some blue screen, green screen effects that looked awful days after it opened in theaters, which in my mind, knowing how poorly those things date, having just watched Revenge of the Sith and saw how poorly those look. I mean, to the point where you can even see the blue reflected on Hayden Christensen's face. Those effects are not going to look good in a year or 5 years or 10 years or God help us 20 years. Like it's just like the clock is ticking on us looking back on Multiverse. And also, like, I think the thing that really kind of bugged me is I remember hearing about the concept of this film, hearing that Raimi was attached to it, hearing the title Multiverse of Madness and thinking, man, we are going to get some batshit crazy stuff in this movie.
Horror movie.
And the furthest that they went is we crossed the street on red. That's like we got one quick little montage of like different universes. Madness. But like to me, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a pitch perfect example of what a multiverse movie should and has the capacity to be. Okay. And Multiverse of Madness just felt so neutered and boring and just it just felt so generic cookie cutter Marvel that I genuinely, no joke, I'm not exaggerating, was ready for it to be over with about 45 minutes left. Okay, now I mean there are elements where like he dream walks into a corpse. Yeah. And like I said, like in those moments, I sort of went like, okay, that's cool. It's pretty gonzo. But that almost felt like a deal that Rainbow was like, okay, I'll do this movie, but I want to do stuff like this.
Well, that's what I was saying when I reviewed it. Like, it felt like two movies were battling each other. There was like this cool Raimi stuff, and the horror elements and like that whole madness sequence with the paint and everything. That was so cool. But I mean, for me, I stand by my review. I thought it was fine. I mean, it was, and for somebody who's grown up loving Sam Raimi, it was just, it felt like they kind of held Sam Raimi back a little bit. Like there was like, and it also felt small. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once feels like a genuine, gigantic multiverse film. Strange feels like a small film. It doesn't, and it should be larger. Should feel larger, but it doesn't.
Okay, so today we are adding Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness to our MCU tier list. Who wants to offer their first?
Cool. Since you two agree on it, you two go, and then we'll see how much mine impacts you.
So following the screening, immediately following the screening, Kevin and I agree that it was a B. I'm going to say that I think it's actually a C.
Yeah, it's B. It was B trending C for me in the screening, and I'm at C now.
Because it is the type of movie that the more I sat with it, the more the things that are troublesome about it irk me more than the moments that were really cool. So I would be B trending C, and I'd actually be C C trending B.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am also C trending D.
okay. All right.
I'm
I think I put it. I'm between B and C, only because I love the Raimi stuff. For me, we discussed this in our review, and also go check out our review of this if you want to hear some spoiler talk between myself, Kevin, and Sean. Jake did not participate in that because he did not see it yet, but you can hear our full thoughts there. For me, the Raimi stuff wasn't out of place, and it was the thing that kept bringing me back in. And that's why I'm not C trending D. I think C trending D is
No. I'm
way
sorry.
too-
I'm C trending B, but
okay,
but I
B.
wouldn't be
Okay.
at B. With the ability to slip down. I think I'm at C, but I could trend up. With it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think C trending B is where I feel as well. After having sat with it, I'm curious what I'll feel if I ever go back. I'm sure I'll go back and watch it a second time at some point.
I would honestly call that, from myself, I would call this bottom quarter Marvel.
That would be C.
Okay.
That would be C.
It's one way to rank it.
I think it's a C.
So according to this tier list, bottom quarter Marvel is the back half of A.
Go on. This list is actually
we're
pretty
gonna-
fair.
Wait, you're saying Shang-Chi is what?
No,
I think he's just making a joke
I was
about-
joking.
He's making
I
a
was
joke
joking.
about how many A's we have.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of A's.
All right, so it's I
a
think we're
C.
all pretty firmly landed in C.
All
The
right.
Raimi stuff is great though. I want to reiterate that.
But honestly, all the Raimi stuff just made me want to watch a different Raimi film.
that again, that's what we talk about expectation or like the place you're at when you watch something, because I was in a place where it kept capturing me and I kept enjoying it. I think you, by the time you were getting there into those moments, were kind of over the movie, and so I understand where you're coming
Also,
from.
another issue I had was like Danny Elfman's score, and I'm a huge Danny Elfman fan, and I guess I'll plug him, even though I'm about to say I didn't love his music in this movie, but he was on our show. Elfman's,
Great interview.
one of the greatest composers of all time, and brilliant. And his music isn't bad; it just doesn't fit the movie because we're so used to Giacchino's score being the central themes of Strange. And even in No Way Home was a better Doctor Strange movie than Multiverse of Madness. And I think Elfman's score felt cartoony and took me out in a weird way. I think Giacchino had already set the atmosphere of what Strange's world is. I mean, the greatest evidence of this is in No Way Home when they show up to Doctor Strange in the beginning of the film, and you hear that like guitar synth, whatever that piece of instrument that Giacchino uses for that score, and you immediately know you're in Strange's world immediately. And like Elfman's music just didn't. I don't know. It was weird. It was like I was used to Giacchino, so I don't know if that's playing into the way I feel about it. Like if
The
you know what
best
I mean?
music moment in the entire movie isn't even an Elfman moment.
The fight.
A couple of new movies that a bunch of us haven't seen, starting with Downton Abbey: A New Era. I had a screening of that, but I haven't. I went to the Downton Abbey movie, the last one that they did, and it's fine. I've never watched the show, so
I am a diehard Downton Abbey.
Are
TV
you?
show fan.
oh really?
Yes.
What?
You're a
I
diehard
would not
Downton
have-
Abbey fan?
This is a relatively new thing.
You're an Abbey? Abbeys? What do they call you guys?
I'm a.
You're an,
I don't know.
you're an
By
Abbey?
the
I'm an
way,
avid. I'm an.
You're
I'm an
walking down
avid
the Abbey Road?
I did a red carpet once for Downton Abbey, the first Downton Abbey movie, and I got all the actors to talk about like when they text about the show, do they ever autocorrect to downtown, and
that's a great
how
question.
long they got, like, because I
Downtown
called it
Abbey?
Downtown Abbey for years.
I have not seen. I didn't get to go to the screening for this. I am a diehard Downton Abbey fan. It happened like last year. I binged the whole thing, and it's just a great escapism sort of thing. It's very fun, and it follows like some real world historical elements. It's fun. It's dramatic. It's kind of like a soap opera, but in a great way.
I
Great
watched
British way.
it for a few seasons and then just kind of tapped out.
Yeah, it's fun. For me, it's comfort food at this point. I put it on in the background all the time because it's just
Well,
cheesy goodness. I'm excited for this film though. So I agree that the first one, if you liked the show, the first movie, it was different. It's different because they were like, let's tell the story of a film. And I think this is going to be similar where it's not going to feel like a long episode. It's going to have its own kind of film structure that'll feel a little different if you're used to the way the TV show unfolds, but I'm excited to see it.
I have a question.
Jake has a question.
And,
for
and
this t-shirt?
maybe this would be a good blend game. So feel free to not answer me.
Okay.
What is the best TV show turned movie?
I like
TV
that
show
one.
turned a movie or like a movie that continued a TV show. Does that even happen?
Like,
I think Jake's point
I would
is
say
like just like it started as a show, and then there was a movie.
Honestly, I would say like The Fugitive
Or Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible.
MacGruber was awesome.
And honestly,
Technically,
like,
James Bond, right? Wasn't the first? Wasn't
Yes.
he in an
Oh,
episode
show?
first? He was like a character in another TV show before they ever made
But
a movie.
generally, like a big show turning into a film.
Yeah.
or is that a blend?
Yes.
And also, that could be a blend game. I don't know if we already have one for next week because Bob's Burgers, the movie, comes out next week. So that could be
Oh, see,
We
there
do
you
have
go.
one for next week,
Oh,
and
sorry.
you will want to do what we're doing next week over whatever you're going to pitch for
favorite
Bob's Burgers. I'll say
favorite
that.
burger movie.
Favorite burger movie.
Favorite
Hey,
burger in a
Good
movie.
burger. Oh, that's actually awesome.
There's a lot of good
Hulu.
Favorite
burgers.
burger in a movie? Favorite
Welcome
movie
to the
burger?
good. Oh no, it's Pulp Fiction. It's got to be the
It's
Pulp
good
Fiction
Pulp
burger.
Fiction. It's 100%
Yeah, it's a
Pulp Fiction.
burger.
It's not even close.
Wait, what was his?
Harold and
answer?
Kumar?
Oh, yeah.
He had somebody
No.
on set
Yeah,
who
yeah,
cooked
made-
burgers
Oh
for
yeah,
them,
I
essentially.
asked him that off mic.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
remember
dude,
that.
what? I was like, Mr. Tarantino. Like, I always wanted to ask him what. I thought maybe it was like an In-N-Out burger.
Wasn't that a
or
part of
something.
the?
was
Wasn't that
off
a part
mic?
of the show?
Yeah,
It was
that
when
part
we
of the
were we were all no, it wasn't part of the show. We were like all like congregating, like, and he had like we had finished, and we were about to leave, and I was like, hey, by the way, I've always wanted to ask you this, and that's when it happened. It's not on. We don't
Was
have
it
that
the
on our
live show
audio.
or the New York show?
It was
New York-
it was the live show, but after the live show.
Interesting.
Okay, well, go listen to our live show. if
It's
you
not
want.
on there though. It's not that
That's
answer's not on
okay.
there.
But there's plenty,
Well, no, it's
plenty
still
good
great.
stuff in
Yeah.
there, though.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I'll take any opportunity to plug that one.
Hulu has a show called a movie coming out called The Valet. I know nothing about The Valet. Anybody know anything about The Valet?
Samara Weaving and I forget the actor. Excuse me, Samara Weaving and I forget the actor's name. Another actor. I think it's like a romantic
Is it?
comedy kind of thing. Maybe I'm
Okay.
way off, but I think we all love Samara Weaving.
Yeah.
I do. Yes.
Doesn't
I
spoil.
watch
Yep.
her in anything. In going to theaters limited and then Amazon Prime next week is a terrific movie called Emergency, which was at Sundance and South by so far this year. And we have a conversation with the director, Carrie Williams, that is going to be a bonus episode for next week. We wanted to put it in between the limited run that it's in theaters and then the Amazon Prime drop next week. And it's so I'm not going to give you a ton of details about it. I'm just going to give you the setup for it. It's set on a college, and the two main characters are old friends who have one is extremely studious, one is a bit of a burnout, and they are planning to go on this legendary one night party that takes them to every fraternity and sorority on their campus. Essentially, they have mapped out the entire strategy of how they're going to do it. And what, like, how they pace themselves, all the different places that they have to go to in order to pull it off. And you think you're getting into a sort of a standard issue college, party hopping type story. And then they go back to their dorm room or house. I think it's more like a house that they're living in. Well, they're two black guys, and they go back to their house and they find a white girl passed out on their floor. And one of them immediately wants to call campus security, and the other one says, dude, we can't. Like, what are you talking about? Like, whatever story we come up with, no one's going to believe us. And it's about how the two of them maneuver the rest of the evening with this drunk, passed out white girl. And it's
That's a
funny.
fascinating premise.
I was like, just that premise gave me so much anxiety.
Yeah,
No, dude.
Serious.
Yes.
I'm
So
thinking
it's-
about it. Yeah.
It's funny, but it's got a ton of really relevant social commentary. The two guys together are really, really funny. The main guy is it RJ Cutler?
RJ Kyler and
who
the other guy's kind of a newcomer. I forget who
he is kind of a newcomer, and they're both fantastic. So we'll get into more details with the conversation and what Carrie Williams wanted to accomplish with it. It started as a short film, and he brought it to South by.
lists the leads as RJ Kyler, Donald Elise Watkins, and Sebastian Chacon.
Okay, so Donald Elise Watkins, is that what is his name? He's the main guy. He's the studious sort of, and it becomes a thing where like all of his friends know that he's the one with the really bright future, and they just don't want to mess it up for him, kind of thing. And it asks all these really complicated questions of just like, if you were in this situation, what could you honestly do? Yeah, what would you do? And it's really, really smart and absolutely needs to be seen. So
Before you explain the plot, I was gonna make a joke that I thought the movie was about the vitamin C emergency that you can get at CVS, and then I heard what the plot was.
Really
I'm like,
glad you didn't make that joke.
well, no,
you dialed it back.
it was funny at the time because like I always think of emergency as like the vitamin C that you can get when you're like feeling sick or whatever, and then when he got into the actual plot, I'm like, oh, it's a serious movie.
I will reiterate the conversation that we recorded with Carrie Williams at South by. Sean and I recorded is going up next Wednesday. So
I'm excited to hear that.
For that. It's a great chat. It's kind of a quick chat. I think we got like 15 minutes with him. We were in the middle of the festival, so everything's kind of hectic.
Sure.
It is audio only. It will be on YouTube though. There's just not a video component because we were in person and recording the show. But it is awesome. He's a fantastic, really interesting filmmaker. I haven't seen the film yet, but according to Sean, he's a fantastic filmmaker. And the conversation itself is really.
It's also important to note that the movie is in theaters May 20th and then Prime next Friday the 27th.
Yeah. So but it's limited this week, so it's check your local market.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how wide that limited release is going to be. Sometimes it can be 2 cities, sometimes it can just be major markets. So check your local listings for that. We always recommend supporting theaters where you can. Interview dropping next week, and then we'll be on Prime.
Oh, so I'm looking over Carrie Williams' filmography here, and the RJ, one of the stars of Emergency, he was in his last film, which was actually called I think it's RJ. It's R&J.
Interesting.
I'm just like kind of looking at his filmography, and that film came out in 2021 and also starred RJ. Hope I'm saying his last name right. Kyler or Siler.
Kyler. People know him from he was in the Power Rangers movie that was recently out.
Yeah,
And
he's
apparently
really good
in
actor
that too.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah, I couldn't remember his last name, but I like him.
Our blend game this week is going to be Alex Garland blend, but before we get there, Jake saw Men. And Men, the new Alex Garland film Men is opening this Friday. So Jake, you're the one who saw it. Take it away.
So yeah, not even just that, just got out of it about 2 hours ago. And it's a lot to chew on. So it's a tough movie to review having just walked out of the theater.
I kind of don't want a lot of details anyway, because it feels like it should be protected.
Here's what I'm going to say is that I really, really, really liked this film. The first half is fantastic and very much like the first half of Ex Machina, where you could just cut the tension with a thread. The back half is very much like the back half of Annihilation, where you just sort of go, these are a lot of really big ideas, and I'm trying to figure out what it is you're trying to tell me with all of these really big, massive ideas and insane imagery. So it kind of threads the needle in terms of Alex Garland accessibility, in terms of what I think an average audience member might be able to expect. I think you could put Ex Machina in front of just about anybody and have them enjoy it. Annihilation, I'd be a little bit more selective who I put that in front of. And something like Men, it's going to be one of those like, well, it's kind of right in the middle. Without giving too much away, the basic premise is that a woman needs to get away, rents a house in the country after her husband may or may not have committed suicide, and just needs to get away. And she, through whether it's the owner of the house or a man that she sees out in the woods, or a local bartender or the cop nearby, the men in the community just tend to act strange. And the hook of the film is that all of the men in the film are played by one actor, Rory Kinnaman, who does just a fantastic job. The movie has a lot to say about women's relationship with men, about the long history of men's oppression of women, starting with "Don't Bite That Apple," all the way to the church, to
he goes that far back, huh?
It goes, yeah. In a way, it kind of reminded me of what Aronofsky did with Mother, and how he took this small house and used it to tell the story of the Bible. Alex Garland, in a lot of ways, uses this small town as a way to talk about women's relationship with men throughout time and throughout history. Okay. It's a very interesting social commentary. I think the best horror films of all time, horror has always been such a really great vessel for social commentary. You know, you look at something as recent as Get Out, you look at Rosemary's Baby. I mean, like, it's just, you know, even the slasher movies of the 80s were very much conversations about the dangers of sex. You know, like, you know, you have sex, you're going to die. And so the fact that Alex Garland is going hardcore into horror, and let me tell you that the final act of this film is some of the most brutal, David Cronenberg like body horror I've ever seen. Like, just
I have a question about that. Is the body horror, because I keep hearing, that's what I keep hearing about this movie, is like how crazy the body horror is. What's worse, the body horror in this or Titane, whatever I can't remember the name of it. How to pronounce
honestly, I don't know. Titan, there were moments where I had to cover my eyes watching
Same.
this. I never had to cover my eyes watching this, but there were definitely moments where I was like, "Wow, that's an image that I didn't think I don't think I'll ever
like
forget."
Titan, I looked away a lot for a lot of it. And
I never had to do that for this. I feel like I kind of want to. Yeah, I kind of want to stop there for Men, other than to say. Very much enjoyed it. I wish the back half is very much the part that you chew on and you think about. But here's what I'll tell you. I usually, whenever I walk around downtown Chicago, I usually put my earbuds in, turn on some music, and that's how I get from A to B, just to kind of zone out and walk around. I didn't put earbuds in. I didn't turn on music. I just thought about it. I just wanted to be alone in my thoughts, thinking about this film the entire walk home. And that's, I don't know how much higher of a compliment you can give a movie than that. So I would say very much recommend, very much worth your time. I hope you guys enjoy it.
You recommend?
Wow.
Oh, dear.
Wow.
All right. So, Jake.
Still ReelBlend, folks.
Jake.
You thought you'd get through that episode.
Jake, keep the microphone in your hand and tell us if Men is your pick for hashtag Alex Garland Blend.
I'm going to be honest. There was a moment like halfway through Men where I thought, hell, maybe I am going to choose Men today. And in time, with retrospect, again, like I said, it's a lot of movie to reflect on 2 hours after walking out of the theater. So as of right now, I can't not pick Ex Machina. I'm going to assume maybe one or both of you guys have as well, but I just got done talking to Long Spiel, so I don't want to take up too much time, other than to say it's such a masterful example of the crossroads of both his writing and direction, as well as 3 absolutely masterful performances. It's thought-provoking, it's weirdly scary, it's claustrophobic all at the same time, it's unsettling. And it's just him firing on all cylinders, and I'm not quite sure he's matched that yet. There are moments of Annihilation I think are as good. There are moments in Men I would argue are as good, but as a whole, I don't think anything's matched Ex Machina.
Yeah, I had to pick it too, and I looked at his writing credits, and he has some tremendous writing credits.
Sure.
But like you said, they don't match Ex Machina, which I think works so well on almost every, like the screenwriting level, execution in terms of his filmmaking is phenomenal. Absolutely one of those movies that you just don't know where it's going or what the plot is, kind of thing, and you're riveted to figure out where it's going. He also benefits from just 3 tremendous leads. Like Alicia Vikander is outstanding in her part. People forget how, I guess because they pop up in franchise stuff, but like Donald Gleason and Oscar Isaac are phenomenal actors.
Sure.
And they get incredible material to play with in Ex Machina. It's just incredibly intelligent science fiction. I like science fiction that's not, it's a little bit futuristic, but still really rooted in what we're living in.
Sure.
And that, because it always feels like it's really believable, and for the end of that film, and I won't give it away for what happens here, is pretty terrifying, and it makes you think. You start to look around at society a little bit differently, and have a cautious eye on other people. So, despite I think Never Let Me Go is an underrated film that more people probably need to pay attention to, and I think Annihilation did a number of incredibly exciting things. Obviously, 28 Days Later too. But I had to go with Ex Machina. Kev, did you also pick it, or did you go a different direction?
No, in Ex Machina, I think it's a masterpiece. I remember that time very fondly because I don't know what happened, but for that particular movie, I did 3 separate press events for it. And I remember seeing it and going, like, being blown away by it, and like I just wanting to talk about it. But remember, if you kind of rewind back to the year this film came out, it was 2014. We were all waiting for Force Awakens in 2015. It had been announced. We knew Donald Gleason was in it. We knew Oscar Isaac was in it. Any actor who was in that film was a big deal to even talk to, no matter what film they were working on. Like, they were in the new Star Wars. I mean, going back to our conversation earlier in this episode, the difference in how I felt about Force Awakens coming out to how I feel now about the upcoming slate is worlds beyond. It is such a different mindset. Like Force Awakens was probably, in my opinion, in my lifetime, next to Endgame, the most anticipated movie that I've ever had to experience as a build up to and see the movie, because it had been so long since, with the idea of these famous characters returning. Anyways, going back to Ex Machina, I remember like Alex Garland came in my studio and we had him on the air as like a one-on-one interview. And this was like, I didn't know Alicia Vikander at this point. I know that she had done other work, but if she had, I had not seen it. But that was my awakening of understanding how brilliant she is. Same with Oscar Isaac and Donald Gleason. I know I'd seen them in other projects, but these three leads, as you mentioned, really became prominent in my mind because of Ex Machina. And the ending shot, I thought was brilliant. I remember all the questions that led to, that shocking ending that you're referring to. But just you can't not mention the dance scene. I know that's a scene that everyone talks about, but that is like, out of context, that scene works as a goof and a gift that we can put out there and have fun with. But in context, tonally, for Alex to have achieved the tone of his movie and have that scene and still works, is a testament to his storytelling. But I just remember, like, I did 3 press things for this. And so weirdly enough, I got Oscar Isaac twice for this movie. One of them, they're both on satellite. One of them was him and Donald Gleason. It was like 8 minutes with them. It's on YouTube if you want to find it. It's actually really funny because, like, again, this is before Force Awakens opened, so everyone wanted to ask them Star Wars questions, right? So that was cool. And Jake, I don't know if you remember this actually. I texted you, so I was on a satellite with Oscar Isaac and Donald Gleason, and I could hear the other one before me. And I don't usually listen to them, but that one was in my ear. And they right before they went into that last interview, I heard them behind the scenes doing Chewbacca sound effects, and I'm like, wait a second, that might be my in, because if I can't really ask them anything about Star Wars, if they're doing Chewbacca sounds, and now they don't know that I heard them do that until I asked them. So that was, I texted Jake and said, hey, I don't remember. I texted you and said, hey, they're doing Chewbacca sounds off mic or off interview, in between interviews. Should that be my Star Wars question? And I ended up asking it, and they did the impression in the interview. I just remember that vividly. I don't know why. And then I got Oscar again, like 2 weeks later, because they wanted to do another promotion push for the film. And I'll tell you right now, it has nothing to do with the opportunities that I love the film. I loved the film prior to the press opportunities. But that was a weird time where you get to spend time with people for a film that you genuinely love, right? And so, like, to have these opportunities to interview Alex and Donald and Oscar for a film that, like, blew my mind, that was just a special time. It was like I just felt like so engaged with that film because I loved it so much, and I got to, like, break it down with them in long form. So I will always look back on that 2014 as like a big deal, because that film was so explosive, and just to be able to be a part of like the press for it was like so cool, especially because it wasn't like, you know what I mean, people didn't really know what the movie was. Like, you were kind of like, it was cool, like it was like you got to talk off the cuff with these guys. It was great.
At the time, did you consider Oscar Isaac to be a most wanted man?
Wait, I don't get the joke.
Audience picks.
When he when you asked Donald Gleason about Chewbacca, did he say it's about time?
Yeah. No, weirdly enough, Oscar said his only answer to my Star Wars question was they fly now, and I'm like, how did you fly now? Like 4 years before, or
that roadmap was laid down?
Yeah, I was like, you already knew that line? Interesting.
Jake, later this year, can they do a double feature of Men and Bros?
That's hey. Honestly, like, anybody out there, come on. No, it was good. Anybody out there who hasn't seen Ex Machina, please.
Oh yeah.
Please watch it. Like, I put Ex Machina in the same category as how much I love Arrival. Now, I've watched Arrival a lot more. I know they're completely different films. I'm just talking sci-fi specifically. But those two films, for some reason, do you ever have that moment in your mind where two films just kind of stick together, even though they're not had anything to do with each other? Like, you just think about them like that. Like, I think of Arrival and Ex Machina. Those two live in my mind in the same place for some reason.
Audience picks. Damian McDonald says, as a writer, it has to be 28 Days Later. But as a director, it's Annihilation. And he said, am I allowed to? I'm allowing myself to. Sure, Damien,
Dude,
you can have two.
I rewatched Annihilation recently. It is freaking awesome. Like, that movie
It's phenomenal.
is...
I wanted to say this before we moved on. It is phenomenal.
Amazing. Like
Does not get enough love.
I still think...
Jake, you're muted, and don't unmute yourself because I don't want to know what you're
There are amazing moments.
Oh, dude.
No,
It's
amazing.
not an amazing film.
There's a
an
moment in
amazing
that
film.
movie that the hair on my arms is standing up right now. When that creature comes in and it's the screams from the people
Bear.
it's killed.
Yeah, that's the best part of the movie.
Oh my! No,
It's the best part of it.
the ending is the best part.
I feel like
The
I need to see
lighthouse?
the ending again.
The Lighthouse?
The ending was
Jake.
amazing. Oh my
It's
god, the
amazing.
ending was
I've
so
tried.
You want to talk about a dance scene? You want to talk about an Alex Garland dance scene?
Yeah,
I've tried watching that movie multiple times to convince myself that I like it more than I actually do. And
Dude,
it's frustrating because the stuff that I love, but the stuff that I don't like
To
this show.
Jake's defense,
but it's phenomenal.
I didn't love Annihilation the first time I saw it, but that was because I liked it, but I didn't love it. Like Ex Machina, I gave a 5. Like Annihilation, I gave a 4 initially. But remember, coming off the heels of Ex Machina, you have expectations in your mind of who this filmmaker is. And Annihilation is a very different film, and it moves different and it plays different. Also, the score in Annihilation is amazing, by the way. But anyways, Annihilation was a film that hit me better on the second and third time. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it.
I think I saw it 3 times in theaters.
Haley McCoy.
Yeah.
Pretty
Haley
damn awesome.
McCoy said, "Never Let Me Go."
Great film. Great book
is a
if you've never read the book.
terrific
Fantastic book. The
Who
book's great.
directed Never Let Me Go? Gabe, can you look that up? Because I know Garland wrote it.
Was that Carey
Lichtman
Mulligan?
Who was
Carey
and
Mulligan,
Andrew Garfield,
Garfield.
and then the lovely Keira Knightley.
Might
Knightley,
be the most
yeah.
depressing movie I've ever seen. Like, that was...
It's a good movie. If you don't know what it's about, it's a good movie to go into it not knowing
100%.
anything.
You know what movie I saw? I remember seeing Never Let Me Go, and then that movie Conviction with Hilary Swank and Sam Rockwell. I saw those both at
Toronto.
TIFF in the same time, and they were both like horribly depressing.
Never Let Me Go was
good
directed
movies.
by Mark Romanek. Mark Romanek.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Harry Lichtman, Carla, Lowen Art, Dino, Paulo, and others went with Ex Machina. Johnny said Dread because he wrote Dread for people who forgot that one, not the Sylvester Stallone one,
Carl
but the one
Urban.
with Carl Urban. And then Tom Honnell said Annihilation, another vote for Annihilation, which would be Gabe's vote as well too. All right,
Annihilation's great.
Oh shit! All right, next week, strap in, boys. We're gonna be playing hashtag Tom Cruise Blend.
No,
Let us know. Let us know your picks.
That's way better than whatever
than
stupid ass
Hamburger
one I
Blend?
came up with.
Burger Blend.
I didn't say burger blend. I said TV show turned into movie
That's
blend.
gonna be really, really
catchy one,
hard.
Man, this might be the hardest one we've had in a while.
Have we not played Tom Cruise Blend? That
Yeah,
seems pretty surprising.
Well, I think we've
this is why
done
I
Tom
always love
Cruise
when-
as favorite. I'm sorry, I think we've done Tom Cruise best. I don't think we've done Tom Cruise
maybe.
favorite.
Well, if we did, it's been a long
Because
time.
I'm fairly certain I chose for best. I'm fairly certain I chose Born on the 4th of July.
yeah,
Well,
that was
we
my
might not be
choice
my
for
favorite.
best. Yeah,
But that was not my
is gonna
favorite.
be
Yeah.
something different. All right, so use the hashtag, or you can email us at realblend@cinemablend.com, and that's where we also received a review this week. And the review comes from Andrea Pianella, who writes, "Dear Blenders, ReelBlend has become my favorite weekly podcast for nearly 1 year. Soon after I got the chance to interview, that's right, I know Andrea, who interviewed Sean on his Release the Snyder Cut book. Every week, I look forward to the weekend to indulge into nearly 2 hours of nerdy, geeky, passionate fun and informative talks. Undoubtedly, the main strength of this podcast is the diversity of opinion, a wide spectrum which enables the listeners to appreciate distinct points of views and perspectives. Movies are personal experiences and resonate differently to each and any of us. So it's empowering to hear you sharing your very own experiences. Each of you respectfully acknowledges the opinions of the other co-hosts and brings something to the podcast to enhance my cinematic experience. The weekly interviews are also a significant asset of the show. You create very relaxed settings and make delightful and charming interviews so that 30 minutes feel like 5 minutes. And it feels like that to us as well, too. I loved many interviews from last year, including Denis Villeneuve, Zack Snyder, Quentin Tarantino, Ridley Scott, and Hans Zimmer. And I'm finally catching up with some older ones. Patty Jenkins was incredible. Moving to the individual co-hosts, I cannot thank enough Kevin for all of his tips and expertise on the aspect ratios and for sharing his contagious passion for the IMAX experience. I was lucky enough to enjoy a Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve movie in the so-called largest IMAX screen in the world in Melbourne, Australia. One of the very few IMAX theaters able to present movies in the 1570 format.
Yep, if it's 1570, that's the perfect, that is the number used for 70 millimeter IMAX 143. Yeah.
The one used to film Tenet. I really enjoyed these movies thanks to Kevin's teaching and insight. I really dig into Jake's interviews and junkets, his smart questions, and cozy environment that he's able to create. Sean and Kevin are good as well, to be honest. And I think of Andrew Garfield and Chloe Zhao as interviews that Jake has done, possibly. However, I'm extremely jealous of Jake's clarity, even when talking 5 times the normal speed. As many people in the world, English is not my first language, so I'm learning a few new things on every interview I hear. And yes, I also liked Finch a lot. So there you go, Jake.
Yes!
You got a Finch fan.
Yes!
Sean is simply
two of us.
Oh, you're the guy. Sean is simply a champ. I cannot thank him enough for his kindness and the amazing interview he offered to participate in. I ate up his book, and I can't wait to get my hands on the new one. To be honest, I believe that Batman is the GOAT of superheroes, and I'm shocked to hear that The Batman is not in his top 5 most anticipated movies of 2022. Thanks, Kevin and Jake, for that. However, I can't deny that his passion for Spider-Man is contagious, and I thought of him a few times while watching No Way Home on December 15th, among lots of screaming Italian fans. Finally, special thanks to Gabe for being such an amazing producer and for competently managing and producing the ReelBlend podcast. It's always good when we can see your face on screen every now and then. Keep up with the great work, and my best wishes for continued success. Ciao belli.
Hey,
Andrea,
love that one.
Or
That's
Andrew.
one of my favorites.
So he's from Italy, and I've interacted with him on Twitter a number of times, and is a very dedicated listener to ReelBlend, and direct messaged me often with comments about the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
taking the
that.
time
That's
to
amazing.
Thank you
to
for
write
that
a
review.
Yeah, that's terrific. Our next premium episode, to remind everybody, is going to be the refreshed review of Steven Spielberg's 1991 film Hook. With me watching it for the very first time and the boys catching up on it. Again, check the description below for more information on how to sign up. We're going to be back next week with, as mentioned, a bonus episode on Wednesday. Carrie Williams, the director of Emergency. And then we'll have a full show on Friday.
And who's going to be on Friday's show?
Is it Joe Kaczynski?
It's Joe Kaczynski.
Fan of ReelBlend.
Oh, dude, that's
Fan
the
of
crazy. You got to tell that story next week.
Oh my God, we have that video. We need to get that video to Gabe.
I haven't even seen it.
You do.
Well, we have the second video.
Yeah. Well, we'll tell that story.
We'll discuss next week.
In the meantime, follow us at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovac, and the show is at ReelBlend. We're going to go record a premium, and we'll be back next week. I thought of something fun that I wanted to shout. Now I forget what it is. I guess I'll just say Elvis.
Hockey
say
pads.
Elvis.
Hockey pads.